Hey friends, welcome to my channel, Earthlings Uncaged. I'm so happy to have you here. Today I'm going to be giving a tour of my new setup that I just finished for my beloved backyard chickens, and I'm also going to point out a few safety features along the way. I have a tour and safety features video from my last setup that has a lot of good info in it, so I'll link it at the end if you also want to check that out. When I built my first backyard chicken setup, I really didn't know what I was getting into, but I managed to build a safe and adequate setup that my chicken children thoroughly enjoyed. Then when I moved recently, it was time to give it a second go, keeping what I liked, improving what I learned from, and adjusting based on flock size, climate, and predators. If you're thinking about getting chickens of your own, just curious about what a chicken setup looks like, or curious about what my chicken setup looks like, then I hope this is a fun and informative watch for you. I also documented my whole cross-country setup rebuild that I'm going to be releasing soon that goes a little bit more into the technical building part of the setup. Before we really get started, make sure to like and subscribe so you can stay up to date with everything I have coming your way. Alright, without any further ado, let's get into it. I'm being extra cuddly today. Look at those toes. Boop! I want to lay a few things out before I start the tour that are important to note because everybody's setup varies based on many different factors, including space, zoning, city ordinances, predators, climate, flock size, and budget. I moved from California to Texas and I doubled my flock size from 6 chickens to 12 chickens in that time. Zoning is more strict where I am now, so everything you see is within those guidelines, even down to the placement of where I actually put my run and coop within the yard. And of course, as well as my very handsome rooster who is allowed where I am. Moving anywhere where he wasn't going to be allowed was an absolute deal breaker for me because he is such a beloved part of this flock and my heart. I just realized that his tail is basically covering my face, but you get the point. You go down here? I repurposed all the lumber that you're going to see, and I had a budget to stick to that I talk about more in my rebuild video. I had many more predators in my last setup area because I was in a much more secluded woodsy area. My main concern here was neighborhood dogs, aerial predators, smaller predators that can still kill your flock like raccoons and weasels, and also the more extreme weather. The two most important aspects of my chicken setup are number 1, safety, and number 2, the happiness of my chickens. We quite literally just finished building all of this, so there's still a lot more that I'm going to do, like enriching it with more plants, and I'm going to be doubling the size of their turnout. That's going to be such a fun expansion that I'm so excited about, but for now, I've just gotten settled in and this is what we have. I'm so proud of it and I'm so excited to show you guys. The setup in a backyard typically has 3 elements to it: the coop, the run, and the turnout. So let's go in that order and work our way out. So I'm in the inside of my coop. It is roughly 12 feet long by 5.5 feet wide and about 6 feet tall with a little slant in the roof. Even though I only have 12 chickens, I have many roost options because chickens like to push each other around and find their spots and also move around based on where it's warmer or colder just to keep them comfortable and give them space. There are 5 nest boxes over here with little curtains in front of a few of them and also a little shelf in front of the nest boxes so they can jump up and walk around and sort of take their time choosing what nest box they want to lay their egg in. There's also a bit of storage underneath of the nest boxes. There is ventilation up at the top here. I put some wood in front of it to kind of reduce the draft for the winter months, but air can still easily get in and out, and I might switch it to a clear corrugated situation, but for now this is what we have, and it still lets a decent amount of light in, so I'm happy with it. I have little string lights in here on a timer, so when it's the evening time, the lights turn on, and it gives the chickens a little bit of light to be able to see everything and get to the spot that they want before the lights turn off and it's time for them to go to bed. You'll also notice that I do have a full AC installed. This was really helpful to have when I was in California during the hotter days. I like to have it as an option to keep the coop nice and cool and just give them an option if they need to get out of the heat. And just to note, in case you're curious, I use the deep litter method with hemp bedding. I also made it so the eggs can be checked from the outside, which was a really intentional decision. I'll touch on more in a bit once we get out to the run where their feeding and watering system is. Hi, Sesame. Hi, girl. I absolutely love that I can walk into this coop. I couldn't do that in my last setup. I really prioritized being able to do that in this setup for ease of cleaning, being able to check on everything, and mostly so I can come inside and actually be in here with my chickens. I also have a little camera here installed so I can check on them at any point during the day or night just to make sure everybody's where they need to be and all safe and good. There is an automatic chicken door. Mine is from Run Chicken. I really like it. I've had it for about 2 years, no issues. Even though my run is entirely predator proof, I still like having it at night as an extra layer of protection against weather and just keeping everybody together. So let's move on to the run. For the peeps who don't know, a run is typically an entirely enclosed area that's connected to the coop that the chickens have access to at all times except for at night when they're in their coop. It's a place for them to have fresh air, stretch their wings, run around, eat their food and water, keeps them safe from extreme weather, and ideally is totally predator proof. My run is roughly 22 feet by 11.5 feet and about 6 feet tall with a slant in the roof. The roofing is corrugated and it's actually repurposed from my horse setup at my last place, which again I will get into more in my rebuilding video that I'll post later. I really like that the roof still lets in a lot of natural sunlight, which is also why I was mindful about where I placed the coop in a way that it was going to block the sun and offer a large amount of shade no matter where the sun was at all times of the day. One of my favorite things to do after the build is done is to add enrichments for them to hop around on and enjoy. So I put in this little porch, there's multiple roosts, this piece of wood kind of creates different spaces and sections, and they really utilize all of it. It's super satisfying to watch them enjoy what you build. Make sure if you do add enrichments like this or for any part of your setup that you're always keeping in mind where a chicken could get stuck. Like this space is big enough for a chicken to fully slide through, not kind of fall into and then get stuck in and get injured or potentially even worse. It's always essential to keep an eye out for any sort of gaps, cracks, spaces that chickens could be injured in. Growing up on a farm, I witnessed some horrific deaths with my animals, and so I sort of learned the hard way that it's always best to just toddler-proof anything you can think of and to just be proactive about anything that could potentially harm them. The ground is covered with organic, non-dyed mulch and a little bit of dirt so they can take dust baths, and there's also a layer of 19 gauge 1/2 inch hardware cloth covering the entire ground of the run to ensure that no predators are going to be able to dig under the run and get in, especially if you're not going to be able to be home with them all day, to make sure that nothing's getting in and everybody's safe. The siding is also all 19 gauge 1/2 inch hardware cloth. It was definitely the most expensive part of the entire setup, but it's sort of an investment that you can't really get around. Chicken wire is super misleading. It will not keep your chickens safe. I get into that more in my safety features video in my last setup, so make sure to check that out if you're not sure about what I'm talking about with that. Another quick safety feature that I really want to note is this little bumper and latch system for the doors. So whenever I open the doors, I latch it here, and then I also have this little bumper here, so no matter which way the door is pushed by the wind or whatever else, they're not gonna get stuck in here and squished, and the door isn't going to slam on them, which could potentially be deadly for them. There's all different ways you could configure something like this. This is just how I did it. It's stuff that I already had sitting around. Just make sure you do think about that with your setup. I do also have a camera that covers the run, so when I'm not home, I can always check what they're up to. I also added this really cute little foyer because I had spare corrugated roofing and spare lumber. And not only is it a really cute, charming addition, it's so nice to have if it's raining and you're trying to get in but the rain is dripping on you. It gives you some protection against that, and it also makes it so I can actually open the door if it's raining and the chickens can stand out here and sort of feel like they're not cooped in without getting wet. I highly recommend adding one of these. It was a really easy little addition that really elevated the design in my opinion. For their food and watering system, I kept it simple. I did have an automatic feeder from Run Chicken, but I wasn't happy with it. I actually made a review video just to kind of save you the hassle and make you aware of what I ran into with it. So if you're curious about it, you can check that out. But what I ended up settling on, at least for now, are just these troughs from Little Giant. I like how deep they are. I put these little blocks so the chickens can reach in, but if you only fill it about halfway up, then they really don't pull hardly any feed out. It's honestly one of the least wasteful systems I've had with feed so far. So I'm really liking this system with the food. I have one for the regular food. I feed them a grower crumble from Scratch and Peck, and then I have oyster shells for the girls that are laying, and then a couple other little troughs around where I put some fermented food in and a lot of produce and treats and things like that. And for their watering system, I just drilled holes in a bucket and got these little attachments. It works really well for me. I'm so happy with it. I love that it's pink. I got it from Lowe's. And then I drilled like a super makeshift hole on top so that it can be filled up from the outside as well. There's also a door right here that opens from the outside, just like with the eggs, because I wanted to make an easy way for anybody who's watching my chickens, if I have to be out of town or if I'm gone all day for work or something, to be able to refill their food if needed, refill their water, and check for eggs. The main reason why I decided to do that initially is because my rooster is not necessarily super friendly to people he doesn't know, especially if they don't really know their way around chickens. So it's just a lot easier. Hey girl, do you want cuddles? You want under my armpit? She likes being under my arm. So making it so they can access all of that just makes it a lot easier for everybody. Even if I didn't have a rooster, it's honestly a feature that I would recommend because it's really easy to find a dog and cat sitter. But again, not everybody has spent time around chickens, and chickens can be really sneaky when you open doors. They like to run out and go on little adventures. So it just gives me peace of mind that if I'm not going to be here, anybody who's watching my cat or my dogs can easily come out and check on things for the chickens and give them what they need through these doors and not accidentally let any chickens out or be hunted down by my very protective and amazing rooster. I didn't do this in my last setup, well, because A, I didn't think about it, and I didn't know that I was gonna have a rooster. He was a surprise. In hindsight, I don't think I would have done it in my last setup because I had such massive predators coming up to my setup, such as mountain lions, bobcats, coyotes on a regular basis. And I do think it compromises the security of the structure a bit because if there was a massive animal that was strong enough to pull the door off, that would probably be the weakest spot of the structure. I wanted to make this setup big enough to where if there are days that they don't get let out into their turnout, maybe they'll be a little pouty about it and a little angsty, but they're gonna be okay because there's enough room and enrichment for them to be comfortable in here if need be for a couple days at a time. That pretty much covers the run, so let's move on to the turnout. I'm in the turnout of my chicken setup, and it is roughly 20 feet by 40 feet. My chickens only have access to this area when I'm home. The reason for that is because it's the least secure area in the entire setup. I did take precautions to protect against predators that I'll note, but if certain predators were given enough time with the perimeter of this area, they could potentially access it. So when they're in here, I always have my ears and eyes open for any alerts to potential threats. Like I said earlier, I am going to double the size and transform it into a green jungle playground oasis, so definitely stay tuned for that. But for now, I'm pretty happy with the size of it, and they seem really happy with it too. I found this old picnic table that's perfect for them. They have a tree that we had to cut down that they love to take naps under. There's also tree stumps and places for them to climb, plenty of space for them to catch some speed, spread their wings, flap around, and adequate shade throughout the entire day in different sections of it. The side fencing is 5 feet tall, and if they ever start to dig at the ground and create too big of a gap between the ground and the fence, I'll definitely put a perimeter of rocks or cement blocks to block that off. The fence that's shared with the neighbors, I do have hardware cloth staked to the ground and attached to T-posts to prevent their dogs from being able to dig under that fence and access this area. My dog is really old, so she can't really move fast enough to be able to do any damage to the chickens from the outside of the fence, but if I had a younger or more active dog, I would definitely put hardware cloth on the perimeter. I'm very diligent when it comes to the safety of backyard chickens with dogs. I also do have aerial netting covering this entire area so no aerial predators can access them. It keeps them safe against hawks and owls so nobody can swoop in and do any damage. I highly recommend that. I chatted with a few of my neighbors and they said that entire flocks around this neighborhood were slowly killed by the hawks and neighborhood dogs. It was something like $20 on Amazon for a 25 by 50 foot section of it, fairly easy to assemble, and I put 8-foot T-posts in the middle here to hold it up high enough so I can still walk under. Definitely worth it for peace of mind and safety.
I'm gonna set you down so I can walk them around. You're so pretty. You're so beautiful. I love you.
This is Hannah, and this is Coda.
I'm gonna set you down. I'll pick you up soon. Okay.
So here you can see the aerial netting that I was talking about. Like I said, I have it covering this entire section. This is the 5-foot fencing that encloses the area. And this is the perimeter that's shared with our neighbor, where there is hardware cloth staked to the ground here and attached to T-posts. If their dog were to decide to try to dig under, it would hit a barrier and not be able to get through. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this tour. If you liked it, please give it a like, share it with a friend. Let me know in the comments what your favorite part about my setup is, what your favorite part about your setup is, or if you don't have chickens yet, what your dream chicken setup would look like. I have big plans for this space and I'm just getting started. So make sure to subscribe so you can stay up to date with everything I have coming your way. I'm Madeline, this is Earthlings Uncaged, and I'm passionate about keeping animals safe and happy.